Hey everybody, video number 2, we're talking about scientific notation. Some of you might be familiar with this, but it's important that we remember how to do it so that we can use it and jump right in when we're doing some of our physics stuff in class, all right? So for scientific notation, these are kind of on this left here, regular old numbers. I get that my video is maybe blocking out some things over here, but that's okay, it doesn't really matter. These are kind of regular numbers, how you're used to spitting things out. But if you notice, when numbers get really, really big, and also sometimes when they get really, really small, it's a pain to write out all these zeros, all right? So there's another way of writing numbers, all right, known as scientific notation. In my opinion, it's an easier way to represent giant numbers and also really, really tiny numbers, all right? So how do you go from a regular kind of written number to a scientifically written number? If you want, you can hit pause and read this over on your own, but I'm also going to explain it out loud. For a really, really big number, what I have here is it's a number that's being multiplied by 10, and it's being multiplied by 10 multiple times. Another way to think of 420,000 is it's also the number 4.2 that's multiplied by 10, and then multiplied by 10, and then multiplied by 10, repeat, repeat, repeat. So how do you do this? How do you show these big numbers? Well, the rule is you always write the first number, and here I am. Here's my scientific notation. I write the first number, in this case 4, and then I do a decimal, and then I write the second number. So here I have a 4 and a 2, so I write 4.2. On this one down here, I have 735, but I do the first number, 7. Then I add a decimal right here, and then I add the next numbers, 35. So it's always one number, and then a decimal, and then maybe one or two others. 4.2, 7.35, 8.97. You get the idea. And then for the big numbers, what you're doing is you're taking this decimal and you're multiplying it by 10 several times. How many times? Oh man, I take my pencil and I figure out where the decimal is, and in this case, it's right here. And every time I move to the left, I'm multiplying by 10. So for this number here, I start on the decimal point and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's when I get to where my decimal was. So I counted 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I write 4.2 times 10. How many times did I multiply by 10? For this example, 5 times. Oh, okay. How about this one right here? Again, I wrote down 7.35 because I always write down the first number, then a decimal, then the next number or two. So I have 7.35. And then it's multiplied by 10. How many times? I get my pencil on my paper. Here's the decimal point, and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, that's why I know this number right here is the number 8. I moved my head around so you could see me a little better. That's why my head jumped up. Now, I can also do this with really small numbers. Again, I'm going to go with the first number. Now, I look over here. Oh, man, where's that first non-zero number? Oh, right here. It's an 8. So I start with an 8, and then I do point, and then maybe one or two numbers. You could round. It's kind of your choice, but 8, 9, 7. So 8.97. This one right here, okay, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Oh, right here, a 1 and then a 4. So 1.4. Now, because these numbers are tiny, I'm not multiplying by 10, I'm dividing by 10. How many times am I dividing? Well, here's my decimal. Now I'm going to the right. 1, 2, 3. Oh, so I have 8.97 times 10 to the, because I'm not actually multiplying, I'm dividing, it's minus 3. It's minus 3 if you remember from math, because when you do an exponent to the negative, it's the same thing as dropping it down below, and that's division. I won't get into that. It's okay if you don't really remember that, but it's a minus 3 for small numbers. So again, 8, 8, then a decimal, 9, 7, and then I'm counting 1, 2, 3 until I get to where that decimal should be. So over here, all right, again, 1.4, how many places do I move that decimal? Once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Oh, so it's minus 6. That's how I do it. These, like most things, are weird at first, but then you get good at them after a couple times, and then it's piece of cake, all right? Over here, I want to mention that sometimes your calculator doesn't do this times 10 to the. depending on your calculator, they might spit out this weird letter E. So that's the other thing I want to talk about in this video. It's known as E notation. Sometimes your calculator likes to do this because it's a little easier to display. It's also probably how you're going to put in scientific notation. You probably want to, instead of trying to cram this into your calculator, use your calculator's own notation that uses this letter E. So here's what you do. Here's how to input scientific notation into your calculator. On your calculator, look for the letter uppercase E, not lowercase e. That's something totally different. Uppercase E, or, and I'm sorry, different calculators do different things. Look for EE. Literally, if you got a calculator nearby, whip it out. See if you can find an uppercase E or an uppercase EE. That button means times 10 to the. That's what your calculator is translating that as. When you hit that button, your calculator reads it as times 10 to the, and then you fill in the blank, okay? You follow that with the exponent. So, for example, this number right here, 7.8 times 10 to the negative 6, that would be inputted, it would be calculated, or entered, into your calculator as 7.8, and then you find that EE button on your calculator, and then you type negative 6, because that's how your calculator responds. 7.8, you want to put in times 10, so that's EE, and then what's the exponent? Minus 6. We'll practice, okay? So, a couple of examples. And notice right here in a sample calculator, these both represent the same thing. Here's that original version of scientific notation. Here's that version with E. But you get the same answer. Again, they're identical. This number here is the same thing as this number, and it's the same thing as that number, all right? So let's see where this shows up in your calculator. I'm going to drag my head back down, okay? If you have like a graphing calculator, I often see EE located nearby where like the 7 number is, right above, in this example, where a little comma is located, EE, all right? So how would you get to this? That's a second function on this calculator. Mr. Thrasher has a calculator on his phone, and it's located right here. So if you use an app that has a calculator app, of course, that has scientific notation, it might have an EE just like this. So that means the same thing, all right? Another couple of examples. If you use a Google calculator, I'm sorry, Google is choosing to be different. They use EXP, but it's the same idea. If I typed in 5, and then I tapped EXP, and then 3, that is 5 times 10 to the third power, or 5,000. Or if you're using one of my calculators in my classroom, which I might recommend, that EE button is located right above the 7. But because it's yellow, you have to first press second. So you would do second and then EE, okay? So let's give this a shot. Honestly, right now, if you need to hit pause, hit pause. Find a calculator. Bust out a calculator. Okay, one of mine, take out your own calculator. If you're watching this, I don't know, find a Google calculator, I don't know. But try to input these numbers into your Google calculator or the calculator you have at home. And try to use that scientific notation. All right, give it a shot. To be honest, any of these answers below, if you did it correctly, they're all the right answer. So if this shows up on your calculator, great. If this shows up on your calculator, great. If this shows up on your calculator, great. If you did 3 times 10 to the 7th divided by 2.6 times 10 to the 2nd, if you put that in your calculator correctly, you should have gotten one of these right answers. If not, check to see if you were using that E notation. Here's a warning, everybody. Here's my big warning. Some students, they're like, oh, Thrasher, this EE thing, that's weird. I can type times 10 and I can add a little exponent and then I don't have to use this weird notation. That is possible, but you have to, if this is how you're going to do it, if you're going to just multiply by 10 and raise that 10 to a power, you have to put parentheses around your numbers. Otherwise, your calculator's order of operations is going to be a little different. Okay, I'm going to say that again. If you're going to input times 10 and then raise it to a power, you can, but only if you are consciously and very carefully putting in parentheses around those numbers. Otherwise, your calculator is going to do the wrong order of operations. Well, it's going to do the right order, but not for what you think you want to do. That's the beauty or the benefit of this E notation. Your calculator knows it's a scientific notation number. So I recommend you try to use it that way. But if you're going to do it this way, make sure you put parentheses around. Notice, here I am using parentheses, and I do get one of those answers. So that's possible. Okay? So do this as practice. Help each other in the classroom to answer some of these practice questions, okay? That's scientific notation and how to put it into your calculator. All right? That's it. Thanks a lot for watching.